In April 2023, I received a FIT test through the post for screening for bowel cancer. It came out the blue. I had no symptoms. I wasn't unwell. And the FIT test arrived and I threw it in a drawer. And I thought, that doesn't apply to me. I'm absolutely fit and healthy. Husband kept nagging. You must do it. We got to the Easter holidays. I was off work. I thought, I'll do that test. Popped it in the post. And 2 or 3 days later, I got a letter asking me to come in and meet with a colorectal nurse at the hospital. Obviously, panic began to set in a little bit. But everyone around me kept saying it will be nothing. There's lots of other things other than cancer. 3 days after that, I was in for a colonoscopy. And then sadly, during the colonoscopy, they found quite a sizable tumour. The very lovely guy who was doing the colonoscopy asked my husband to come into the room, and he explained that in his experience, what he was seeing was a cancerous tumour because of the look, texture, colour. Obviously, it couldn't be 100%, but that was his thought. Things really moved quickly from there. That was on the Saturday. Miraculously, I got a phone call that afternoon from the MRI service. I had an MRI on the Sunday. I had a CT on the Tuesday, and I was sat in front of a consultant and a colorectal team the following Thursday. And I have to say, the NHS, they were amazing for me. So I sat in front of a consultant on the Thursday, and from the scans and the biopsies, I was stage 2, possibly stage 3, with colorectal cancer. Unfortunately for me, the position of my tumour wasn't in the best position to be straightforward. So he advised that he'd got some colleagues with him in another room. He wanted to get my agreement to start a clinical trial rather than go down, jump in, surgery, chemo, because he wasn't sure surgically if he would be able to at that point. And that began my journey with, ironically called the Star Trek programme. And then in the September of that year, I underwent surgery, which went very well. They managed to remove the tumour and the surrounding tissue, so showed no further signs of disease. So after rest, I was told everything looked great. In the following February, I went for an endoscopy, just a routine part of the trial, and things had started to change. My consultant rang me and said, unfortunately, on the latest scans, it had rapidly increased in size, and it was back with a vengeance. I then underwent a full anterior resection, and I had a stoma, an ileostomy. And then unfortunately, during the surgery, when they took biopsies, they'd found it had spread and it had gone into my lymph nodes. So I had to have a test to see if they could reverse the ileostomy, because I was going to have to go onto chemo, and it's very difficult to organise, manage, maintain chemo whilst having an ileostomy. 10 days later, I was in for a reversal. And then probably about 3 weeks after that, I started chemo. Obviously, people began to know about my illness and my diagnosis. I was struggling mentally with the shock. And I'd always been the strong one. I'd always been the fixer. I'd always been the ear for everybody. And I didn't know how to ask for help or even receive help. And through various conversations, Mark kindly organised some counselling sessions for me here at the centre. And I can honestly say I don't know how, looking back now, I don't know how I'd have got through it without that help. Being able to talk through my feelings, my coping mechanisms, my relationships with people, where I was going to draw the strength from. I was very worried that even though I'd always been the strong one, that I wouldn't have the strength. And Chris, the counsellor, was just amazing, and we unpicked a lot of things, rebuilt a lot of things. It made me realise that I wasn't on my own. It was a community, and there was lots of things happening locally that I could then become involved in and wanted to be involved in, and felt I wanted to be a part of it to help others, really. I think the counselling sessions for me were fundamental in getting me to where I was, well, where I am today. I hadn't realised how low isn't the right word, how much I was struggling with all the concepts of my cancer diagnosis. And the counselling sessions just made me feel it was okay to not be okay, that it was something that I actually look forward to, and it helped me self-reflect, and it helped me understand that sometimes things were going to be tough, sometimes things were going to be difficult, sometimes people who you thought were going to be, you were able to rely on, weren't the people you thought, and actually people new to your life made that support even stronger. That being the people here at the charity, the counsellors, people I've met through the charity, fellow sufferers. There's also a support group that's been set up by Kimya, which is doing wonderful things to connect people. So I think it's been immeasurable, really, in getting me to where I am today, because I think if I'd have been left to my own devices, I'd have unravelled quite a lot. The word cancer to most people is horrifying and frightening and devastating. And a lot of people associate that one word and automatically associate it with a death sentence. And people around me, I feel, found it very difficult to process that, and therefore took a step back. At the time, I didn't recognise that. I just felt abandoned by some people, certain people. And the counselling helped me understand what a massive deal it is for everybody else, because you do get wrapped up in your own diagnosis and illness, and it just enabled me to take a step back and think, I do actually need to be a bit compassionate. I've had a journey now coming up to 11 months post chemo of being watched like a hawk. Lots of surveillance from the traditional surveillance team of the NHS and also the trials team alongside that. I've had 2 scans now that have showed no evidence of disease. So that was emotional, a big sigh of relief. I think charities such as this wonderful one don't ever receive the recognition for the changes they make in people's lives, and not just their lives, but their families' lives. And I think it's so important to remember that they're there and to promote them. And that's why myself and my husband have now become ambassadors, because I want to feel like I want to give something back to the charity to ensure that it still progresses and successful, so it can help other people as it helped me. And I know there are a lot of people that haven't got the family network and the friend network that I've got. So that becomes doubly important for people like that. I can say to anybody that if you've been diagnosed or you're in the early stages of treatment and you're feeling quite alone, Even if you're surrounded by a room full of people, you can feel the loneliest person when, I always think, when the lights go off and it's dark and you're alone in your thoughts. So I know how easy it is to fall into that mindset of darkness. I think reach out to an organisation such as this one. I did point a few people in the direction of this charity and said how much it was helping me at that time, and how by talking to somebody who isn't your family, who isn't a friend, who's separate, but who can be a voice of reason and a massive sounding board, how much it helps to just express it and vent a little bit, cry a lot, laugh a lot. I found quite therapeutic. We ended up laughing about some situations that before this treatment I would never have thought would have been humorous, but you find humour in the darkest places. But yeah, I would always say to anybody in treatment, reach out. There's so many wonderful things that they do here. They've got beauty therapists and complementary therapists and advisors and counsellors and wonderful people like Kimya, who goes out and spreads the word. And I would just say, take that leap of faith, because it will make everything much easier to deal with.